Good morning, everybody. Greetings from Farm Table and from Nancy Graydon at Red Clover Herbal Apothecary Farm. This is Mike Scott. I'm the program director at Farm Table. You should be seeing a screen with creating medicine from herbs you grow at the top. That's Nancy's PowerPoint. We're glad to have you here. You can either, in your lower left, you'll see stop or start video, depending. If it says start video and you'd like to start it, feel free. But you came into the meeting with your video off, and you're all muted as well. So if you could keep yourself muted so that we don't have just background noise, that would be great. So Farm Table is committed to growing local food culture, and we do so through rekindling connections between people and local food, farmers, and the land. And Nancy is a farmer that we work with. We sell her stuff at Farm Table. And Nancy, feel free to jump in now and start in, maybe introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll go from there.
First, I want to give a shout out to Maureen from Cork, Ireland. Hi, Maureen. Love to you. Good morning, Kristen. Well, let's see. I own Red Clover Herbal Apothecary Farm. We're certified organic. We grow over 50 kinds of medicinal herbs. We wild harvest about 20 kinds. And we make plant medicine from them. Salves, tinctures, also called extracts, elixirs, syrups. We work really hard to build soil. Education is a huge part of what we do because a lot of people still, there's not a memory of using plants for health and well-being. So yeah, and it's really a nice community to have the Farm Table Foundation. They're one of a kind in the country. I don't think anyone's doing what the Farm Table Foundation is doing. So good morning. Maureen, what time is it in Ireland? Did you get up in the middle of the night?
No, it's 4 in the afternoon.
Oh, well, good gosh. Okay, well, should we get started?
Sure thing.
Okay, so you can see there's some pictures here on the PowerPoint, and we're harvesting all the time. Once the growing season is full on, we'll be bringing in baskets of herbs nearly every day, putting them in the drying room or chopping them up for plant tinctures. You can see, can you see up in the upper left-hand corner, that's all Heal-All. Isn't that a beautiful crop? And then behind it is Chamomile. That was a really good year. So what we're going to be, here's a brief outline. We're going to start with soil because healthy plants, healthy soil, healthy plants, healthy people. And then we're going to talk about planting in the soil, tending to your plants, harvesting, plant medicine making, and we'll cover teas, tinctures, which are also extracts. The FDA now wants me to call them plant extracts, so I'm trying to redo that in my mind. We're talking about drying herbs for teas and oils, garbling, which is stripping the dried plant parts off the stem, making tinctures, making oils, storing your plant medicine, and we're going to talk about 8 different herbs. There's some recipes of combining these herbs, and then we'll talk about dosing. And Kristen, do you do with plant medicine? Are you? No? Okay, so Maureen already is an herbalist and already makes a lot of plant medicine and some of the best products I've ever had, including her soap. Okay, so we'll move on. So soil and fertility, that's huge because a lot of the food, even a lot of the medicine we're getting is coming from dirt, where the mycorrhizal fungi is really disturbed. You're not getting the microbes that you need. It's just been with chemicals, Roundup, tilling, over-tilling, tilling, not paying any attention to what's in that soil. It's just denatured. All of our food, I think a lot of our health problems are stemming directly from that. I think even COVID, because our immune system has been so depleted because of what we've been taking in our food. If we're eating poorly, especially if we're eating poorly. So soil fertility is super important. But then there's some plants like mullein and St. John's wort. They love to grow in soil that's dry, sandy, not nutrient rich. So with herbs, it's different than with vegetables. So, but to build soil, I know Maureen, you gather seaweed from the sea, don't you? And you put that on your gardens, which I don't have here. I wish we did. But so we're using, we do compost here, and we'll take the compost, composted from our foods. We'll add that. We also add a composted organic manure. And a composted organic manure should not smell like manure. And it should crumble nicely in your hands, not all dry, but it should have some meat to it. And we also, we build a mycorrhizal fungal network. We get a mycorrhizal inoculum that will add to the soil. Mostly, we're doing this year a lot, using a broad fork a lot, just to lift the soil up. What I'm doing is, if you're starting from fresh, where you haven't had a garden before, and there's no chemicals or pesticides, and you have a diverse lawn like creeping Charlie, dandelion, plantain, different kinds of clovers, you probably have a really nice mycorrhizal network, a nice microbe relationship going on underneath there. You may not have to add anything, but if you've been using that garden for a while, you want to make sure that you keep feeding it to build soil. And so building the mycorrhizal network is one of them. And one way is not to use a broad fork. Don't just keep turning it and turning it. But so what I'll do, I'll go out and I'll water really well for a couple hours. I'll go out with a broad fork, gently lift, and then you can just pull those weeds right out. But the earth doesn't like a scab. It's just like our skin. It's going to try to grow skin over it right away. So the first line plants are going to come in. They're going to start putting down roots. Those roots are going to start pulling up nutrients, adding nutrients. Nature's really set up to try to keep coming back into homeostasis, just like our body. So, and you can also add worm castings. I'm really into Neptune Harvest fish fertilizer. It's fresh. It's a combination of fish and kelp, which, Maureen, you're getting that with your seaweed. And then we also make a compost tea out of nettles and comfrey. That's super simple. We just take a 5-gallon bucket. We do the anaerobic method. Because it's easier. We fill the bucket full of chopped up nettles, like half the way full, and then we fill that full of water. We put a lid on it, set it in the shade, and then we let it set for a couple weeks. And then we stand back when we open it up a couple weeks later, because it is strong. And then we use usually a 1-to-10 ratio to add as a nutrient and a natural fertilizer on our plants. And then we'll apply that to plants, especially that just look like they're doing poorly. Excuse me. And also planting a diversity of crops is, we're not doing corn, soybean. We're doing a lot of plants side by side that are different. Let's see. Here's a picture of the mycorrhizal network, and I just love it. You can see up in the right-hand corner, so the mycorrhizal fungi, all of that is the fruiting bodies are the mushrooms, but they give the plants, the trees feed the mycorrhizal network carbohydrates as a source of food. In exchange, the mycorrhizal network will help it to uptake water and phosphorus and nitrogen. So they help each other live and grow, and it grows from tree to tree to tree to tree to tree to tree. I heard one time the largest mycorrhizal network was, oh my God, I forget how many miles, but it was huge. So it's super important. And every time we lift that soil and turn it, we're breaking up that relationship. And we think about colony collapses, like the bee colony collapse. We could have a mycorrhizal fungi collapse. Just because the way we're treating the herbs, and which, I think we do in those corn and soybean fields where it's dirt, not soil anymore. But it's just a beautiful relationship that they have with each other.
Nancy, we've got a question here.
Sure, yeah.
So just by the way, folks, if you have a question, you can click on that chat box in the lower part of your screen and send that on in, and I'll interject those to Nancy periodically. And Nancy, you may be able to see those if you have your chat box up, but this,
I don't, and I've never had a chat box up, so you'll just have to tell me.
okay. So Robin says, I live in an area that had groundwater contamination a number of years ago. We're at the bottom of a hill. We would need to do a raised garden. Do you have a suggestion of a type of soil, suggestions of what we should bring in?
Sure, let's see. Well, you can go to do you live in Minneapolis or in Minneapolis, St. Paul?
Yep, she does.
Okay, so Mother Earth Gardens has some great composted manure and great organic soil. I mean, if you want to buy it, you can just go there and you can do really well by them. You can also, I don't know if you've been composting in your yard and your compost is matured and doesn't smell, and you can use that also. You can I'm going to talk a little bit where you can buy worm castings. That Neptune fish fertilizer is great. But if you're going to buy your soil, Mother Earth Gardens is one place it's great to go.
And Kristen just said she was there before this
Does
call.
that help? Okay. Oh, you were. Oh, great. Wonderful.
It's on
I love the work.
It's on 38th Street and 42nd Avenue in South
Right.
Bend.
Yes. And there's also one northeast and on Lowry Avenue too.
Great.
Okay. So but a raised bed, that's great. Especially you can plant a little denser if your soil is really deep. You can plant them closer together. So when you're ready to put your plants in the ground, and some of you may be germinating from your own seeds, but we're not covering that today. But when you're ready to put your plants in the ground, I like to water them first. I like to hydrate them so they're nice and robust. And we don't plant in the heat of the day. That's going to suck the energy. That's going to put stress on them as we put them in the ground. So we tend to do our transplanting out in the morning, or a cloudy day, it doesn't really matter. We try not to do it too late in the day where it's going to get cool at night. Also, those plants should have been hardened off, which means that they haven't been in a greenhouse and gone straight from a greenhouse to in the ground, because they've just been babied in the greenhouse. Stable temperature, away from wind. So you want to take them out during the day, maybe, make a little simple cold frame over them at night. But okay, so you're going to put them in the ground. I like to dig the holes first. I'll dig like a dozen holes. I'll set the pots right next to those holes. And then I add, depending on the plants, like St. John's wort doesn't like a lot of fertility. I'll add usually a tablespoon of worm castings. I'll add half a cup of that fish kelp emulsion, and I might add a little mycorrhizal inoculum. And then I'll put that plant in there. I'll pour some water on it. Well, actually, the kelp fish emulsion is in a 5-gallon bucket. And with Neptune Harvest, you use 1 tablespoon per gallon. So 1 gallon goes a long ways. I'll water the plant, put some soil over it, then put some of that kelp fish emulsion on it, and then finish patting the soil around it. We'll take it up to the crown of the plant. And the crown is where the leaves stop and there might be a little stem and the roots go down. You don't want the roots above the surface, and you don't want the leaves in the surface. So right there at that crown. And then we'll just go down the line, and we don't want to leave them setting out too long in the sun with their roots not in the ground. We kind of baby them as we put them in, as we're putting them into their new home. Any questions there?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay. All right, so watering. I mean, we try not to overwater because we want them to send their roots down and pull up water. If you overwater them, or when there's a lot of rain, they don't have to send their roots down. The soil's saturated, so they don't have to work so hard, but we want them to build strength, so we don't overwater. They're looking, of course, if they're starting to wilt, you definitely want to, and you want to get to them before too much stress has happened. Plants in a container will need to be watered more often than ones that are directly in the earth, so just keep an eye on that. Weeding, the weeds serve a purpose. They hold the soil down, they hold the soil in place. They also provide nutrients. Too many of them are going to compete with the plants you're growing for medicine for those nutrients. So we tend to, when we weed, we lay them in between the rows. Well, what we're actually doing, we're growing cover crops in between the rows. Red clover, oats, different kinds of clover actually, and oats, and then we can actually harvest from that. But you can also lay those weeds in between the plants as long as they haven't gone to seed, and then as they die, they're going to put nutrients back into the soil. So, but you don't want to, you know, I was brought up to think that you didn't have any weeds in a garden. You had these nice, neat rows. You had the soil, and also that a lawn should look like a carpet. I had to relearn why that's not good. And you really want to cover that earth. It protects the soil. And if you can cover it with weeds, sometimes, you know, you can use burlap if that's nice. You can use cardboard. We tend to like to grow cover crops in between ours, but we're doing a bigger scale. So at home, I would just make sure you lay those weeds down if there's not seeds in them and use those as a mulch. You can use straw. What do you use, Maureen? I don't think we can hear. I can't hear you. Let me see.
Yeah, no, I use cardboard,
Okay.
newsprint.
Okay, great. Okay, that's wonderful. All right. So again, fertility, we're using nettle. Our soil's pretty fertile, but we always have to build soil every year, keep building. Most of what we grow are perennials, so we're not digging them up every year. We find every third year we need to replace them. The energy starts to wane. Not on all the plants. Monarda seems to do fine for a long time. Elecampane seems to do fine for a long time. But once they're up and going, sometimes we'll side dress them with composted cow manure, but we're using nettles and comfrey a lot as a fertilizer. So now we're going to get into harvesting. Here's some pictures. This is some women that worked on the farm over the years, which is the most beautiful people that have worked on the farm over the years. But you know, it's a lot of work, but it's happy because you're working with the plants. And also trying to set up a photo like this. I mean, you know, we're setting the camera up and standing back and trying to get, you know, on the bench with all the plants before it takes off. So this is probably take 5. And we're like, oh my God. But, you know, it's nice to have photos of the harvested plants. They're beautiful. This is roots here. I believe these might have been ashwagandha roots here. This is an ashwagandha root here. Can you see the pointer? Is there a mouth showing up? Okay, good. This is a basket of chamomile. This is blue cornflower. This is oat straw. That's yarrow. That's not big enough. I can't make it out. That looks like that's red clover. This has got to be calendula. Anyway, those are some of our harvest in the baskets. So harvesting, and we'll talk about how to harvest the individual 7 plants as we talk about them. But we harvest after the dew is off of the plant because if you take it to dry it, that's just going to add more moisture. We try not to harvest it in the heat of the day where they're going to wilt fast either. So it's that time in between. We want to avoid splash. That's why another thing, having mulch. When it rains, if you have, you know, the soil is exposed all around it. When it rains, that's going to splash up, especially on the underleaves. So that's another reason to have mulch. But herbs that grow, like Mediterranean herbs, rosemary, thyme, they like a drier soil. So if you mulch too heavily around them, holding moisture, they're not going to do well. But anyway, we harvest above the splash. We use a stainless steel pruner. I used to, when I first started getting pruners, I'm going to get a green because it matches the color of the leaves and the plants, and we could never find them. So now I get bright pink, I get day glow, you know, any yellow, whatever color I can find that's easier to find when you set them down. We don't let the harvest set out on the sun. We'll take them in we'll set them in the shade, those baskets. Or we'll just take them right into the commercial kitchen. We harvest the roots in the spring or the fall. That's when the energy is still concentrated down in the plant. Once the leaves start to come up and the flowers, you know, the energy is going to move up as they as the plant blossoms and reach towards the sun. And when we harvest the roots, we have a little we have a, what did I say, needle nose spade? Yeah, it's like for roots, or we'll use a forklift, excuse me. We don't have a forklift on the farm. We'll use a, oh my gosh, you know, the things with the forks in it. I'm having a mind, what is that called? A pitchfork, excuse me, pitchfork. So we'll use that to loosen the soil around it. We really want to loosen it up. We go out quite a ways because we don't want to break the roots, and then we'll loosen it with our hands and pull it up. Any questions there? And we'll talk more about harvesting with the 7 individual plants. More things will come into play. Okay, so once you harvest, yes. You have any?
No questions at the moment, thanks.
Okay, so drying your herbs. We don't dry all of them. We'll talk about extracts, tinctures in a little bit, and we tend to tincture everything fresh. But right now, drying your herbs, we'll take them in. You can see now we have a bigger drying room, but here, this was in the mudroom of my house. I built a couple of these. I have a lot to comply with the FDA. These little screens here I got at IKEA. They're great. They're a clothes drying rack. They're great to hang plants on. This, we didn't have room in the drying room. This went up in a spare bedroom on sheets. And as soon as these were dry in the drying room, we'd bring them down. But we had to turn these often. But they're very beautiful, aren't they, when they're drying? So you want to put them in an area where they're out of direct sunlight. If you have a lot of windows, if you're getting a lot of south sun, you might want to put a shade and, you know, turn it so the sun's not directly on them. You want some airflow, so a fan is nice, not blowing the plants. But, and if it's raining out, you want to shut the windows because you don't want to keep introducing moisture. You can get a little dehumidifier. We keep one. Our drying room / commercial kitchen are together, and we keep a dehumidifier running 24/7 once we start bringing in plants that we're harvesting. And we just started that yesterday with violets, chickweed, nettles, and dandelion flowers.
Nancy, we have 2 questions here.
All right.
What do you do with the roots?
Okay. So the roots were, in the spring, we don't dry our roots because we're not making teas with them. And are we making oil out of any of our roots? I don't even think we're making oil out of any of our roots. So if you want to dry them, okay, let me back up. So mostly we're chopping them up. We're hosing them down to get the dirt out. There's little rocks that live in there. So we'll use a higher powered hose outside to wash them down. We'll bring them in, chop them up, and then they'll go in alcohol right away to do an extract. But with ashwagandha, because we also tincture it and then we dry it for a powder, we put that in a dehydrator. We chop it up really small, put it in a dehydrator, because roots take longer to dry, and to just lay them out drying, you can hang them upside down. It'll just take longer. So that's, yeah, with the roots. Mostly we're making extracts and tinctures.
And there's another one. How can you tell when they are completely dry as opposed to topically? And that might just be, you know, the general you've been talking about.
That's a great question, and we're going to get to that in just a second because that's an important question. So here are some options for drying herbs. Now these herbs up here, they're too crowded. You need to have airspace in between them. It's a beautiful picture, but no, maybe it's okay. They're not really dense looking herbs, but I definitely have them spread out more than that. Okay, so drying your herbs, I think I covered this. If you're using window screens, don't use aluminum. Get a fiberglass. We talked about clothes drying racks, tiered hanging baskets. People get them for their onions and bananas. You can use a clothesline and get an S-hook, and then I wouldn't band more than 4 to 5 bundles of herbs together at a time, but with a rubber band at the top. And there's a picture I showed. Should I go back, or on the clothes drying rack, we just band them at the top, and you can put that S-hook and string that on the clothesline. Here's a dehydrator I have. It's a Nesco. I got it for $50, and I've had it for years, and it works great. I think it has 4 or 5 different levels.
And Nancy, we've got a question about teasel root. Do you use teasel root for tincture?
Yes, I do. I've got it growing in the greenhouse. It's considered invasive in a lot of states, so we make sure that we cut off the tops before they go to seed. We don't want it to become invasive here, but we harvest that first year root for limes. It's one of the best herbs, that Japanese knotweed, for limes that I find. So yes, we do use the root. You can use the first year root. I have some for sale at the plant sale tomorrow. Maybe about a dozen, maybe 16. And I'll talk about the plant sale later.
And Nancy, how about why do you not use aluminum window for the screens?
Because aluminum is a toxin in your body. It's the same reason you don't use deodorant with aluminum. It's a harsh chemical and a harsh toxin. So you can go, Menards sells, you can buy probably for under $8 a roll of screen, a fiberglass screen. Yes, and it's just a roll out. You'd have to, our drying racks, that's what we've used, and we've made wooden racks, and we just staple that fiberglass screen to the wooden drying racks, and that's what we use in the greenhouse. So for drying herbs, to test for dryness, if the leaves crumble and just fall to powder, they're too dry. They should crumble in your hands, but not in a powder. And some plants like Calendula, they have so much resin in the flower. How do you know they're dry? We break them open, make sure your lips are dry. Your lips are so sensitive, you can rub that on your lip, and if you don't detect moisture, they're dry. A lot of times if they bend, they won't break, they have moisture. If you dry a plant well, it should retain most of its color. Red clover should still be red. Calendula should not be dried out. I mean, after storing it for a year or two in a jar, it'll change colors, but it should retain its color of orange or yellow. The green should pretty much stay the same. The first year I over dried everything, but you're going to lose, if you over dry, you're going to start losing the beneficial plant properties. Any questions there?
Not yet, Nancy, thanks.
Okay. Oops, something happened. I got rid of you, Mike. But I see Zoe. Hi. Okay, garbling. Garbling is the term we use for stripping the leaves and flowers off a stem. And if a friend calls up and says, "What are you doing?" You go, "Hey, I just sat down to garble some Verbascum faspis." They're like, "What?" We like to use the Latin binomials on the farm just because it's good to learn them. There's a lot of common names that are different from region to region. So this is one way to refer back to make sure you're talking about the same plant. We actually grew, yes.
Pardon me. Sorry, I missed something. How can you tell if it's too dry? And then regarding the dryness, you want a little moisture? Say a little bit more about that lip test.
Okay, you really don't want any moisture. If you're dry, if it's leaves that you're checking, say Tulsi, a lot of leaves, lemon balm, a lot of leaves, when you, they shouldn't bend. The leaves shouldn't bend. That's still moisture. You should be able to put them in your hand. Well, on the stem, you should be able to pull them off and they'll come off. If they're not coming off, there's still moisture. When you garble, they should come off. But if you go to crumble them and they just crumble almost like a powder, they're too dry. I know it's hard to get used to knowing when they're dry or not, but when you take it to your lip, a dry lip, no chapstick, if you don't detect moisture, you can pretty much guarantee they're dry. Now, we'll put them in gallon jars, glass gallon jars at that point, but we always check back a day later. The first years I grew chamomile, I didn't have a chamomile rake, and to harvest a gallon of chamomile, a gallon when it's dried can take all day long. And I was looking at my plants, and I'm looking at in the jars, and I'm looking at chamomile, and there's a little fuzz. I'm like, what? I open it up. Chamomile is a tricky one. It was all molded. It had started a mold in there. So with chamomile, sometimes I'll put a paper towel and then screw the lid on to absorb moisture. Chamomile is tricky. You don't want to just powder. But so check your herbs the next day and the next day in the jar. Put your hand in there. If it feels like they're moist again, go back and re-dry them. Mike, I lost you. Can I get you back? It's helpful for me to. I did something.
I don't know, but
I guess it doesn't matter.
we can see you fine and
Okay, all right.
see the screen
Okay.
fine.
Okay,
There's one other question, Nancy, about red
sure.
clover
All
and
right.
where you'd get red clover for a cover crop.
Sure. I'm getting mine. You can get it at Fedco, which is great. They have an organic source. I get the bees love the white clover, but which I do have in a cover crop. I have a cover crop now with 8 different seeds, but I get Trifolium pratense. It's the medium red clover, and you can buy a 5-pound bag from Fedco. I want to talk about milky oats later, and I would also order some Avena sativa. Those are oats. That's some of the best plant medicine. It's super easy to grow. If you can just buy, I mean, hopefully you can just buy a pound. If not, buy 5 pounds and share it with a friend. It'll store too from year to year. Yes. So red clover really helps fix nitrogen in the soil. We tend to plant it with oat straw, which pulls nitrogen out. But if you're not going to get flowers the first year on the red clover. It's usually the second year. Farm Table is connected with the Hungry Turtle Farm, and they do an incredible job of growing a diverse cover crop for their heritage breed cows. And they let me go over there before the cows get in to harvest red clover. And that's where I get a lot of my red clover, plus on the farm here. Okay, so now we're going to switch to plant medicine making. I'm going to crack my back here. So a tincture or plant extract is a menstruum that you will put the plant into. And I mostly use alcohol. And what the alcohol will pull the medicinal properties out of that plant. And after a while, you can press that plant out and strain that alcohol and store it. And it will keep that plant medicine there for 5 to 7 years. Some people say even longer, but you can use your senses, taste, smell. But we keep ours for at least 5 years. So we do mostly fresh herbs. We will harvest them outside, bring them into the commercial kitchen. We're harvesting above the splash, so there's not any dirt on them. Sometimes, we'll have to shake them outside. We'll bring them into the drying room. We have a big stainless steel table in there, but we'll put them on a chopping block. We'll chop them up. Chopping them up exposes the surface area and also helps to release some of the juice. Then we use quart jars like this. You can use, smaller. We'll put them in there, and then we'll fill it full of alcohol. We tend to use 80 proof E&J brandy, which is actually 40% alcohol. So whatever the proof is, you cut that in 2, and that's a percentage. We're switching to Prairie vodka to organic this year. It's like $5 more a bottle. It's cost prohibitive, but this is the year I'm going to do it. So I got to get a membership from Costco so I can get my costs down there. I always feel like I have to explain myself. I go into a liquor store and I buy 3 bottles of Everclear and like 5 liters of E&J brandy, and everyone invariably says, wow, you're going to have a big party. And I'll try to explain to them what it's for. And, they're like, wow, I've never heard that story before. But so I quit doing that, but now I'm back to doing that again because I want people to know that, plant medicine is a real thing, that herbs are healing for your health and they're great for your well-being. So anyway, we'll chop that up. We'll put it in a jar. Then we'll pour alcohol over it. I have some ashwagandha root here. And I fill this, I have here on the PowerPoint 2/3 to 3/4 full, 3/4 full. I believe this is 3/4 full. This one we actually did use organic prairie vodka. And you can see the alcohol is over the plant. You want to make sure it's over the plant, especially if it's fresh, because if that fresh plant is sticking above the alcohol, it could introduce bacteria.
Nancy?
And you don't want, yes?
If you would like people to see what you're holding up better, you could click stop sharing screen if that's important. And then click.
Oh, if I could get the little pictures back of me, then I can see where I am on where it is in the picture. I don't know how to do that. But say stop sharing, then I have to go back and forth, right?
That's correct, yes. If you want to stop sharing your screen, we would see a bigger picture of you, most likely.
Okay, I see you. I disappeared. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hold up the?
Here we are.
There
I
you
don't
go.
see
Now we can
me.
see that. Yeah.
So just like this. And okay, so you couldn't see it before?
Not very
Nancy,
well.
if I can interrupt, why don't you take a minute to like hover your mouse over like the thumbnail where you get little graphics of.
Okay, all right, I see that. It says gallery view.
Why don't you just play around with that for a minute and we'll take a pause.
Okay, okay. Oh, here we go. So I've got me, but it says mute.
Can the rest of you see Nancy fine on your screen and see what she's holding up?
Right now, I only see you as a big picture and she's a small thumbnail, but maybe it's my.
How about now?
I guess,
Can you see
Well,
it now?
when she speaks, and if we're all
Yeah.
muted, we'll see Nancy.
Okay, you can see this now?
Yes,
Okay, and then I'll just have to go back to the PowerPoint. I'll have to go back and forth, right?
that's correct.
I'll have to go back to, what do I go back to?
You click share
This is
screen.
hey, can you tell this is the first time I've ever done this on the screen online?
Or did you have a little a drink this morning, Nancy?
Oh, well, you know, I had some chaga in my coffee.
All right, there you go. Well, you can.
Now, come on.
You,
I'm just,
you
okay,
can show
so-
us. You
all
can
right,
show
so-
us the thing when you hold it up, and then you just click share screen.
all right, gotcha. Okay, so this is the ashwagandha that's in an extract, so you get an idea. This is going to go on a shelf. We build all these wooden shelves and curtains that go over them. You want to keep it away from heat and away from light. That's going to diminish some of the plant properties. We put on it, always put the name of the plant. You think you might remember, but and we put the date we put it in. This doesn't have the Latin binomial. We usually put that on. We put where it's from. This is fresh, red clover herbal. It's organic. And we like to put love and healing on the plant. We just write a heart plus healing. There's that Japanese scientist that did the studies with how words affect water, and they can change. So, and including, you know, we're 3/4 water or liquid. So we put this, when we try to write it and feel it when we do it. We don't know how that affects the plant medicine, but it can't hurt.
Nancy, we can't read the label, so if you could just turn that's too close. If you could just turn it so we can see the roots better, and then just tell us what its label is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the label says ashwagandha. It says red clover herbal farm fresh, because this was put in the extract fresh. Then we have a heart plus healing. We have the date. We have that it's 40% prairie vodka, organic vodka, and then we put 1:1. That's a ratio, because this is pretty much a 1:1 ratio. We try to do that with all of our plants. Okay, I'm going to put this down. So that is a plant extract or plant tincture.
And then someone asked if you could explain the alcohol-proof content or ratio again.
Sure, that's coming up next. Yes, I will. But before we get there, that's on the next page. I want to talk about using a dried herb. So sometimes in the winter, we run out of the fresh plant tincture, but we've dried herbs that we use for tea. So we'll take and we'll put that in a jar. We only fill that half full because they're going to expand. And then when we leave them out we leave them out for a day so we can check them the next day to make sure that they haven't risen above the alcohol. You don't have to worry about bacteria setting up as much though with dried plant material. Now I'm going to talk about glycerin, I think, and then we'll get on to, okay, let's see. Here's making a tincture, continued. We've talked about all of this already. Oh, we let it sit in a minimum of 2 weeks. Some of them go a year, like our propolis, our cottonwood buds, some of the mushrooms I'll let for, because we do a dual extraction, up to 6 months. But 2 weeks, if it's a leaf or a flower, is fine. If you need to start taking that or you want to give it to someone, you can just take it off the top and still leave that plant matter in the menstruum, in the alcohol. But you want to make sure that alcohol is still above the plant. But then after 8 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, you can press it out. So Mike, I want to go, the question again was what? I know. it was about explaining the alcohol, and I will, that's coming up. So when you want to decant, which means you want to press your tincture, you want to press, let's see. You saw the ashwagandha. I don't know if you can see it now, but when you want to press that out, I'm going to go back to stop share. Okay, so you'll take this tincture. What we do, we have these little lids that we buy. They're stainless steel screens. You can get them for a wide mouth or a smaller mouth canning jar. They're great. We'll just screw that over top of the, say, this ashwagandha, and then we'll, let's see, we have a little funnel. Oh, here it is. We'll put this funnel in a jar, and then we'll just turn this upside down. And what we do, we usually lean this against a wall. But you know, if you have a smaller mouth jar and you put a screen on it, that's just going to fit. That'll just fit right in there. And you can just let that set for a couple hours and strain. Be careful when you go to tip it, because some of that alcohol is going to start coming out right away. So be gentle when you turn it. You can also, if you've bought some of the fiberglass screen for your drying, to make drying racks, you can also cut some of that, put that on a bottle with a rubber band, and just, you know, put it in a jar, gently, you know, put it over the top of a jar. Or if it's smaller, again, you can just put it in a bigger jar. You can also use a potato ricer. This is nice for elderberries. This is nice for hawthorn berries. It's nice for things where it's harder to press it out. You can also use a cheesecloth, you know, put it in a funnel. I would use then a stainless steel funnel if the plant medicine is going to be touching it. And then you can squeeze it into the jar afterwards. We're lucky enough, we got a grant for a big plant press, which you don't need. But it's really helpful for elderberries because we squeeze every last drop out of the elderberries then.
Nancy, thank you. People are appreciating the visuals and what you've got there to show, so thanks.
Oh my gosh, is it, how much time do we have left?
About 15 minutes or a half hour.
15 minutes? Okay.
Well,
okay,
no, I
I'm
think
gonna have to,
we can go till another 45 if need be.
okay, all right, so I'll pick it up a little bit.
But
I'll put it on 33 speed.
well, one thing, are the pre-made screens easily available retail, Nancy? The pre-made screens.
Yes, you can buy them. They're usually stainless steel and they're super expensive. I've just made all of mine because it's cost prohibitive. But yes, you can buy them through, let's see, Strictly Medicinal Herbs used to have them. If you're thinking of the drying racks, are, you know, those closed drying screens, they're nice. But yes, you can buy them online, but they're usually stainless steel, and it's a lot of money.
And Nancy, my apologies. Most of our classes have been an hour lately, but this one was advertised as an hour and a half. So you have another 40 minutes.
Okay, good, great, okay. So we're going to move on. So talking about the alcohol now. So if you go into the liquor store and it says 80 proof, like I said, you cut that in half. That means that's 40%. 190, like Everclear or Volkov, that's 190 proof. That would be 95%. We tend to use 40%, and I've been using E&J brandy, and as I'm switching to Prairie Organic vodka, that's 80 proof also, which is 40%. Some people say you should use more with fresh plants, and I listed some: lemon balm, some of the berries, some of the roots. We tend to stick with 40%, and I love the plant medicine. I love the taste of it. Lemon balm tastes exactly like lemon balm. Tulsi tastes just like Tulsi. The higher percentage alcohol you get, it can pull more of the medicinal properties out. But I myself am sticking with mostly 40%, except with nettles. Nettles, the best way to get nettles, of course, is with the tea. It pulls out all the minerals. where extracts tend to pull out all the plant chemical constituents like tannins and saponins, and where you're not going to get that as well. You can get that with water in some of them, but anyway, so I tend to use if you're going to tincture fresh nettles, dried nettles, forget it. It's not worth tincturing. Tea is best. But if you're tincturing nettles, you need to use 190 grain proof alcohol, which is 95%. Also with cottonwood buds, the resinous cottonwood buds, with propolis, with anything that's resinous and sticky. I think I've used it with it's boswellia, which is the resin, I think, from the sandalwood tree. I've used that with that. Okay, does that, I think I've got it covered there. But if there's questions, just ask away.
There's one here, Nancy. Are there any issues with the lids of the jars being metal, while the tinctures are simmering? Or
Yeah, we usually don't have any trouble at all, but you don't want it to. Here's another thing. You want to shake those tinctures. I forgot to mention that. When they're on the shelf, you want to shake them a couple times a week because you want to mix it up. You want to get those plant properties poured out into the alcohol, but we have never had a trouble with rust. I'd say if you're letting, maybe if bacteria is introduced, you might get more of that, but I don't know, are these made out of stainless steel, these ball canning jars? I don't think they are. They're aluminum, aren't they? But we're using, but it's got the rubber bottom. We just haven't had any trouble with it, so no. So you can use a glycerin as a base for your tinctures. That's especially for children, people who are in recovery, people who can't tolerate alcohol. You're not going to pull out as much of the medicinal properties. It takes a longer time to pull out the medicinal properties, and it's good for a year to 2 years max. And I always store those in the refrigerator. You want to fill the jar about a third full. I pour a little boiling water over it just to wet the herb, and then I'll fill it at least half over that herb. And then you want to let that set longer because it takes longer to pull those medicinal properties out. So a minimum of 6 weeks for that. But it's great for children. Elderflower is a great one. I know I work with a reservation up in the Coudray. They've come down here before. We're making extracts in vinegar. So Skullcap and Milky Oat Seed are really good for people going through withdrawal, helping to just calm the nervous system down as they're coming down. And I do talk about that combination later. So making herbal oils. There's only one plant that we use the herb fresh, and that is, let me get out of here. That is St. John's wort. St. John's wort says, put me in the oil fresh and put me out in the sun. Most of our oils we will dry. We'll take them into the drying room, we'll dry, and then we'll put them in a jar. Half full, and we use organic olive oil in all of ours. I mean, you can use coconut oil, you can use shea butter oil. We've just stuck with olive oil, and we put those in the greenhouse, and we put them under a blanket for 10 hot days. They don't like, all herbs don't like direct sunlight or don't like fresh, except for St. John's wort. And we'll let them set under that blanket in the dark. That heat gathers, and after 10 hot days, the medicinal properties have gotten pulled out into the soil. Then you can strain your oil. We strain it using the same screens, and then we store all of ours in the refrigerator. I think we have 50 different kinds of salves or different oils that we make. Let's see, there's something else I wanted to say about that. Well, let's go back to St. John's wort. St. John's wort, we pick it fresh. We'll lay it out, and spread it out on a sheet or something outdoors for maybe a half an hour before we put it in the jar, just to get off a little if there's any moisture at all. Then we'll put it in the jar. We'll cover it with olive oil, make sure it's covered a couple inches, and that just sets out in the sun. We keep it where we can see it, where we're going in and out of the house. And you'll see every day it gets pinker and pinker and pinker till it turns red. That's a hypericum in the oil that's coming out. And this is one of my favorite. I'm in love with this oil right now. I've been growing it and harvesting it for years. We also wild harvest some, but this is a plant that likes dry, sandy soil. And it's a beautiful little, wears a beautiful little yellow dress. It looks like a ballerina, but that root is boom. It's like an elder that's strong and thick, and it's almost impossible to separate that root.
And Nancy, we've got a question from Zoe about she can no longer find wild St. John's wort. Does the cultivar species have the same medicinal potency?
Well, I started with the cultivar, and now I have a big bed of it. It keeps growing and growing. Zoe, I know you live in Amory. I can tell you a place where you can wild harvest, where there's plenty. So if you connect with me via email. So the first couple years I bought seed and grew it. There's a kind of disease. It turns rust colored. It'll start from the bottom up. My cultivars got that the first year, and so I didn't harvest from it. I actually, and it comes in the seed, so there's really nothing you can do. It's not really what's in the soil. But what I found out, those plants came back the second and third year, and now they're doing great. Even in the wild, it can get that, though, I've noticed. So there is still places around here to get it, Zoe. And if you connect with me, I can tell you one of my secret places. Okay, so we're going to, if you want to do the quick method with oil, a lot of you don't have a greenhouse, I understand. So you can just put them in a bag outside in the hot sun, or under a blanket where light won't get to it. Bring it in if it's going to rain, because moisture, we just bring them in. The jars, moisture doesn't get in there, but we bring them in and take them back out when it warms up. You can also use a crock pot. You can use a double boiler. My personal experience is that you do not get the same quality of medicinal plant properties. It's more effective doing the solar method, but in the wintertime, like this winter, I ran out of calendula, so I had to take some of the dried calendula flowers, and I put that in a jar, put the oil on it, I cover it up, and then I put it in a double boiler. And this is an invaluable thing to have, is a double boiler. Well, now you can't even go to secondhand shops, but these are great for making your salves and also for your oils. But what we'll do, I'll put a canning lid in the bottom. Can you see me? Here, let me switch back so you can see me here. I'll take one of these double boilers. I'll put some canning lids in the bottom just to keep the jar up off of the bottom of the pan, because you do not want it to get too hot. So I can fit 2-quart jars in here with a couple of these lids. I'll get the water, I'll simmer it, low simmer, and then I pick up the bottom of the pan to make sure, that the heat's getting there. I don't want that water to come way up here over the pan. I just want it barely to touch. And I'm going to turn it on. Once that water gets hot, I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to slow heat that I'll do it all day long. But if you get it too hot, you're going to know, because your oil is going to smell burned. So it's kind of tricky. I had a friend gave me an old deep fryer that I could set at 100 degrees. 95 to 100 degrees is optimal. You're not going to burn. I find in the double boiler, it's hard to keep it under that. So I don't know how easy it is to find an old deep fryer, but there was a screen there and I could set the lids on that. I didn't even put water in it. I just set them in dry, because the way it heated up, that was beautiful. That burnt out after about 5 years, but it was great for winter time. So any questions about the oil making? Okay.
Nope.
Storing your herbs, we talked about that. So now we're going to talk about the 7 plants. Lemon balm. It's one of my very favorites. Melissa officinalis. Can you see this picture of lemon balm? Okay. So this will also be for sale tomorrow at the plant sale. Lemon balm is a perennial. It comes back year after year after year. And we even have places where we've tilled under, and then we've planted cover crops, and that lemongrass just keeps coming up. It's kind of hard to kill off. some of ours that came up from last year, we had a frost earlier, late last week, and the leaves did burn a little from the frost, but you want to plant those about 12 inches apart. We tend to do 3 rows together, and then we can harvest from each side, and then we plant like 2.5, 3 foot rows of cover crops, and then we'll do 3 more, 3 more rows of another plant. It prefers a rich, well-drained soil, but it's really not that picky. It likes full sun. It can take a little shade. We replant every 3 years because it does start to wane a little bit, the growth that we get from it. If you want to put straw over it to mulch it over wintertime, that's helpful. But pull that off in the summer, and then you can put that around the plant, because this is one that, the splash really gets, this seems to really get splashed on. I'm not sure why. What attaches to we harvest a lot of it, and it really attaches to under the leaves. Lemon balm is one of those plants you just walk by it. If your leg rubs up against it, you can smell it. It has the most beautiful scent. It's so sweet. It's a happy herb. The bees love it. It's a native plant. So from the time you put it in the ground to the time you can harvest it, it's about 70 days. Now, since it's a perennial, ours is already up and it's about 6 inches tall. We can probably start harvesting in a month. But if it's the first year going out, expect 70 to 90 days. I'll talk about harvesting in a minute. It gets up to 2 feet tall. The companion plants that go really well with it are lavender, chamomile, rosemary, oregano, borage. I hope to have a handout that Mike can email all of you, but I don't think I'll have that ready till later today. So it'll have all this on it.
Related to that, Nancy, the PowerPoint itself, might I send that to folks as well?
Yeah. Hey, why don't you do that? Because then I won't have to do the handout. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mike.
So if you can send me the PowerPoint later, I'll send it out to everybody.
That's great. You can harvest this anytime during the growing season. Don't wait till it flowers. Once it flowers, the plant's like, oh, we're getting to the end of our growing season. So we must harvest this, say it's the plant's 12 inches tall, we might take it down 6 inches. We'll take it, we use snips, those fiskars, and we'll cut it. And then we'll, put it in baskets. We'll take it in and we'll lay it on the drying screens, or we'll take it in and we'll chop it up and we'll make a plant extract with it. But you can harvest this all throughout the growing season. So just know, don't wait till the end of summer to harvest these plants. Most of them anyway. Like the roots, of course, you're going to wait spring or the second year, unless it's teasel in the fall of, spring of spring or fall.
Nancy?
So you can, yes?
Remember when we were doing the test, how there was a bit of that typing sound based on the table?
Are you getting that again?
Getting that a little bit.
Okay.
Just FYI.
I took a leaf out of my table thinking that would help, and I tightened down some nuts and bolts. So
it has helped.
Okay. So I'll just keep my arms off of it. Mabel, keep your elbows off the table. Okay, so the medicinal preparations, you can make a tincture. We have dried it for a tea, and made an oil out of it, because lemon balm is really good for herpes. It's not as strong as the essential oil. You can buy the essential oil and make a salve in an olive oil base and use that. But we hang them upside down and we'll lay them on a screen. This herb is a nervine, which means it's calming for the nervous system. I love it for so many reasons, but it's very calming, but it's also very uplifting. So maybe people going through depression, if they're not on SSRI, you can combine it with St. John's wort, you can combine it with Holy Basil. Those 3 are great for depression. It's great for anxiety. It just brings in, the tea is lovely because you can smell that. You have that aroma wafting up, and I think it starts that calming right away, because in those volatile oils is some of the plant medicine. So when you're making a tea, I always put a lid on my tea while it's steeping, because some of that beautiful aroma coming out is some of that plant medicine. So I wait to strain my tea I keep a lid on it until I strain it. This is really good for, it's also good for people who have issues with digestion. I love to mix it with chamomile. It's great for people who hold their nervous system in their gut. Some people hold it in their heart, their chest, more prone to heart attacks. Other people in their gut, more prone to ulcers because of the worrying. Let's see, it's contraindicated with thyroid medications. I have to say that. And large doses, absolutely. I probably would be fine with drinking tea every now and then, but I would not take this on a regular basis if you're taking thyroid medications. Chamomile. This is Ronya, Maureen. Like 2 years ago, she was helping me pick chamomile. I don't direct seed chamomile anymore because it is so hard to tell from the weeds and we lose it. So now I always start in the greenhouse. Now I have some established beds, so I don't have to worry. They come up and I don't have to worry about it. I will be selling chamomile at the sale tomorrow. Can you see this plant okay? It's a Mychorrhizal recutita. You want to space them 8 to 10 inches apart, and we'll do rows of 3 or 4, and we just keep the rows like a foot apart. But we'll space them within those rows 8 to 10 inches. It likes a sandy soil, but it also likes good organic matter. So it's not going to grow in a wet soil very well. But it doesn't. It likes the soil to have fertility in it. It likes full sun. Don't plant it in the shade. After 90 days, you can start harvesting. But I can already tell we'll be able to harvest ours in a couple weeks. What's coming back, the perennials. It can get up to 2 feet tall, but mostly I say it stays around 12 to 16 inches here on the farm. Anything you plant chamomile next to is going to increase the essential oil properties of that plant. So next to lavender is great, next to lemon balm. I want to say California poppy and calendula like to grow in the same kind of soil. And I have lavender basil there. I'm not sure why I have basil there. And then there's a comma. I must have left something out. But lavender is another, chamomile and lavender. It's really going to increase the essential oils in lavender. We have a chamomile rake we use now. It's also called a blueberry rake, just because we grow a lot of it and it would take us we can't spend all day harvesting. But I will say, if you have time to sit down and harvest it, it's very calming. Pay attention to how you feel when you're harvesting. This plant is so chill. And it also is a nervine. So, but it's not a heavy hitting nervine. It's not a sedative like valerian. You can use it as a tincture in a tea. I put chamomile oil. I've never made chamomile oil. I'm wondering why I put that there. I'm imagining though, if you did make an oil with the dried flowers, it would be really nice to add to calendula for a diaper rash. It's also, you can use this flower with calendula in a baby's first bath with a few dried rose petals. You just make a tea, maybe a cup, and that's just so lovely for a little baby, even just chamomile alone. It's calming, soothing, stress relieving, and again, especially when you hold your nervous system in your gut. #1 herb for IBS. So if you have any friends that have IBS, or you do, if you haven't tried this, have it before a meal. The plant constituents in here are so phenomenal for that. It's also, because it's calming, it can help relax aches and pains. It's good for sleep. It's great for children, great for colicky babies along with catnip. It's an anti-inflammatory, which I can attest to. So you can take that as a tincture or the tea bags on your eyes for puppy eyes. Some people use it for styes. It is the most gentle for your skin, especially combined with calendula. And here's calendula. Calendula is the first one, the last one to get up in the morning and the first one to go to bed at night. It's it's the last one to open up its head, and it goes to bed early, but it blooms all summer long. If you keep picking it, it'll keep coming. And it's a very joyful plant. We grow the, wait a minute, I have Melissa officinalis. That's not right. Calendula is Calendula officinalis. So that Latin binomial up here is wrong. That's lemon balm. So we do get the Calendula officinalis, which is the official calendula plant. It used to grow wild around here. It doesn't anymore. We do save seed. We save back seed, but this will also self-seed. We plant it 10 inches apart, 10 to 12. And then in between rows, we tend to grow rows, like I said, of 2 or 3 together. And we leave 2 feet apart in our rows. It can grow in almost any kind of soil, but it doesn't like to be overly moist. Maturity, this one matures really fast. I am growing calendula at the plant sale. Here's one. And you can see it's starting to, it wants to flower. It wants to get its feet in the ground. It wants to get its roots. Once this is in the ground, this is going to flower within a week or 2. If you keep picking those flowers, they're going to keep coming all summer. You can just take your fingers and pop their little heads off, or you can take snips. I take snips and move them up to the top of the flower, clip them, put them in a basket. Those clippers, this is such a resinous plant. That's part of the beauty of it, but you'll find your snippers, your clippers will get really sticky. Your fingers will get super sticky, where after a while you'll have to go wash it off to keep harvesting. But if you want to harvest them when they're fully open and beautiful. Some people do it a little before. I do it when they're fully open, and they'll keep coming all summer long. This is a great seed to save back. The seed is also beautiful. It's shaped like a crown with little, oh, you've probably seen indentations in it. It's a really beautiful seed. It's a bigger seed. It can attract aphids. I've never had that problem. If you do have a problem with that, you can plant it next to other plants. Well, you can plant calendula next to plants that attract aphids that you don't want aphids to be there, or you can get some ladybugs. And it says or plants. I forgot something there on that part. So I already talked about harvesting. Again, that shouldn't say Melissa officinalis, that should say Calendula officinalis. The medicinal, you can use this in a tea. You can use it in, we make a lot of calendula oil. We also tincture it, and then you can use that as a compress. A compress is where we make a tea out of it, and then we'll take that tea or even that wet plant and lay it on the body, maybe use some cheesecloth, lay it on the body, and then put another cloth on top of it. Then you can put a heating pad or hot water bottle on top of that. This is antiseptic properties. It's great for promoting healing of wounds, whether inside the body or out. We do a heal all salve and calendulas in there. But we also put in St. John's wort and heal all and yarrow and some comfrey root and leaf and something else, and a little bit of lavender oil. This is also good for healing the GI tract. People have ulcers. It will help close those wounds. There's other plants we tend to combine it with, like meadowsweet and chamomile, maybe a little bit of comfrey leaf. So it's really good for healing ulcers and in the GI tract. It's great for, it's a lymphagogue too, so it helps move the lymph. The lymph is like the garbage disposal of the body. It's going to take the toxins, move them to where they need to go to get moved out of the body. This is going to help increase that. It's like a good friend that shows up to help move the lymph. Also as cleavers, red clover, baptisia, there's a lot of them. Cleavers is our #1 for moving lymph. It's very soothing and softening. This alone as an oil or a salve is great for diaper rash. The flowers can be used for a dye. So if you have any questions about these as I'm going through, just ask away. So Tulsi had a really low germination rate this year. And I get a composted germination mix from Calsmo. And I got the extra this year, extra added stuff to it, but I'm having issues with it. And I won't have any for sale tomorrow because what I have has to go out to the farm. But I did receive 2 new trays, and so I might have some available in a month. But Tulsi is in the basil family, but it's different. It will die at the first frost, just like holy basil, just like the culinary basil. It's Ocynum teniflorum or Ocynum sanctum. It's considered sacred in India. You don't wear your shoes when you pass it. It's a beautiful plant. It's super easy to grow. It likes a richer, looser soil. It doesn't like to dry out. We plant them 12 inches apart. It needs full sun. And within 90 days, you can start harvesting this. once you start harvesting it, you can harvest it all summer long. Don't wait until it goes to flower. Once it goes to flower, it's like basil, it'll start to bolt. Although those flowers you can also use as medicine. So we just keep cutting it. We cut like the same plant every other week, and it'll keep growing. We don't cut it down to the ground. We leave at least half of it. But if we got to stay on it, because once it starts to flower, those flowers will harden, and we want those flowers to be fresh, just like the leaves. It goes really well with spearmint and peppermint, but you know, spearmint and peppermint are on runners. They know no boundaries. It's really best to give them their own plot. I've learned, but it does go well as companion plant with the peppermint, spearmint, lemongrass, and cilantro. I think I talked about the harvesting. You can hang them upside down and dry them as a tea. You can make an extract out of them. We haven't done an oil out of them. So this falls in a property as in a category of an adaptogen. Ashwagandha is in that category too, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this really helps the body. Life is stressful for many different reasons, and stress can cause us to be more prone to illness. This is one of these herbs that helps protect us from that. It doesn't mean that we should still keep on with that stressful lifestyle. We should try to bring that more into balance if we can, but this herb is going to help us keep from getting sick. It builds energy, and it also gives energy right away. People coming off coffee, this is a nice substitute because it's uplifting. It's really an energy you feel in the head. I like to mix it with ginkgo biloba and lion's mane. It's really good for cerebral circulation and nerve health. But also people who don't drink coffee love to have this in the morning because it makes you alert without taxing your adrenals. It even smells that kind of way. It's like to mix it with lemon balm and St. John's wort if you're not on SSRI, with the Tulsi for a tea. It's really good, or as a tincture, it's really good for depression. People who smoke a lot of pot, this is really good for mental fog. It really helps sharpen the brain. And it means incomparable one in Sanskrit. I've heard other translations too. Skullcap. We're selling Skullcap at the market. At the plant sale tomorrow on the farm. This is a picture of Skullcap. I wouldn't be without Skullcap. Skullcap is a fantastic nervine. It's a perennial. It's one of its unique things is that the flowers all grow on one side, and you can see that in the picture here. It comes back year after year. It is a nervine, and it's you can also use it for insomnia. It's very common for the nervous system, shakiness, for uptightness. I like to use it with passion flower, skullcap, and milky oat seed during the day. If I, wake up in the morning and I start to spin out, and maybe I've had a cup of coffee, most likely have, I start to spin out before I even get started because I see how much I have to do that day on the farm. I'll take a good dropper full of skullcap with the combination I mentioned, and always it stops that circular thinking. It brings things down. I can put one foot in front of the other and even forget I was stressed out. Skullcap I just think is an essential to have in a garden. It likes moist soil. We have a gentle slope on the land, so we plant like valerian, marshmallow, skullcap. They all like more moist soil. We have wood betony down there too. It can do some shade. It mostly gets sun on our farm though. You can start harvesting after 90 days. Don't wait for it to go to flower. Start harvesting the leaves. You can harvest the flowers too when they're still fresh. We tincture this and we dry it for a tea. The tea, you're going to lose quite a bit of medicinal properties in the drying, so tea is, but I find in a tincture, that's not true. I find it to be very effective. Oh, I'm sorry. The tincture is very effective. I find the tea not to be as effective, but we still dry some anyway because I put it in a sleepy time tea. It goes good with feverfew, catnip, and chicory. We used to plant it with those, but now we plant it, but we find it does better in the moisture ground, and where I have catnip and feverfew isn't that moist, so I've just moved my skullcap, but those are some companion plants for it. Feverfew stinks, so don't plant, that's for fewer fevers. That's for people, it's great for people with migraines, but it's, don't plant feverfew next to pollinator plants because it will keep the pollinators from coming there. And, don't plant it next to Echinacea, borage. So skullcap, I think I talked about harvesting. You can dry and you can lay it dry flat on the screen. You can hang it upside down, depending on how much how much length you get when you harvest, and you can tincture it. I just said it's a premier nervine, very calming and centering, very relaxing, nervous tension. It's what we use with Milky Oat Seed for people going through drug withdrawal. You could make a tea. Now, Milky Oat Seed, you have to use it fresh. You can't use a tea out of that. We do dry it though, but you're going to get the best medicinal properties with Milky Oat Seed when it's fresh, and we'll get to that soon. But it's great if you make an extract with vinegar out of these two. You want to keep that extract in a cool place if you use vinegar. Vinegar is good, again, for about a year. If you're going to do a tincture and extract with vinegar, I'm talking about people who are intolerant to alcohol, people who are going through withdrawal. You do not want to give them an extract that has alcohol in it. That can really trigger, reusing. So with vinegar, I keep it in a cool place because it can turn on you. And that's where you have to be careful about the metal rusting. So don't fill it to the top. You can probably find online ways to do that. And I'd let it sit in there for a good 4 weeks before I'd take any off. And for some women, this is really nice for menstrual cramps too. I find hawthorn and black haw are the best there. But for some women, skullcap really helps relax the nervous system enough that it helps with less cramping. So here's oats, a Venus sativa. It's a kind that, like in oatmeal. You can buy this at Fedco, Organic Source. I mean, you can Albert Lee seeds too, but you have to buy bigger. You might be able to get them from Johnny's Organic, 2 and 5 pounds, maybe even 1 pound. So I don't start this indoors. This you're going to hand broadcast, which is really fun. It feels ancient. But you'll get the seeds. They're kind of bigger seed. And you're going to prepare the soil. So you're going to want to have the weeds out of that soil. You can also mix it with red clover. Now, red clover sometimes needs an inoculant. And I think you can get red clover that already has an inoculant on it. That helps the seed to open up through Fedco. But if not, you can buy a packet, and it's just a powder, and you sprinkle it on a little bit on the oats, and you wet them just a little bit. Let them set for like 10 minutes so then you can broadcast them, and then you take those oats. You just broadcast them in this soil that you've raked and prepared, and then you lightly go over with one of those leaf raking rakes, the lighter rakes, just gently to pull the soil over, and then we put light straw mulch on top. The birds will come. They love to pick away at these seeds. There's no way they can get all of them. And then we'll water. Gently water. You don't want to wash the seeds away. But that light smattering of straw on top. You don't want to use hay because that has seeds. You want to use straw. That's going to hold the seed down, prevent it from washing out in a rainstorm, and keep some of it away from the birds. That's going to mature that matures, I think I have it on the next page. I think that matures within like 60 days. And you'll know because, let's see, I'll get to that on the next page. This likes full sun, and it likes a good fertile soil. That's why we like to plant it with red clover. This gets up to 4 feet tall. So you can see right here, when you squeeze, we start checking when the seed starts to get plump. We'll go out and check. And when you can squeeze milk out of it, you can see some milk here and there. That's when it's ready to harvest. Now you have a window of about a week, maybe 9 days to harvest this. And that milk dries up, that good plant medicine is gone. So we harvest this. You can go along and just pull it up like this. It's really a fun thing to harvest. And then we'll just drop them into a bag or a basket that has a really fine weave. And then we're going to take them into the house right away. I'm going to go forward. I might come back to this slide. We're going to put it in a blender. This is some that hasn't been put into a blender, and those hulls aren't broken up. The alcohol's on it, but so that milk hasn't escaped, and it's not going to escape. So we put it into a blender and we whir it up. It looks like this. It looks milky, and then we'll put it on the shelf looking like this. So just so you have an idea, and we'll leave that go. You know, you can start taking off 2 weeks after, but we let it go at least 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll harvest off the milky oats, and then we go along and we clip the stems off them. We cut them and we get long baskets of the stems. You know, the stems can be 3 feet long. We harvest them in long baskets, and then we'll dry that for tea. That's great. That's oat straw. That's also a nervine, and it tastes like, it smells like a field of hay, and I love the smell of it. We like to mix it with horsetail, red clover, nettles. Oats are great for building bones. They have like a lot of magnesium, calcium, manganese. Same with horsetail has a lot of silica, and nettles is just so minerally rich. It's great for building bones too. Also, nettles builds red blood cells, so for people who are anemic, it's great.
Nancy, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
And,
All right.
Time check is about 5 minutes in terms of when.
Okay, we're getting close to the end.
So can you tell us more about vinegar tinctures, and also can you have similar bacterial concerns with vinegar, you know, if you don't fill the jar all the way to the top?
Yes, especially if you're using a fresh plant. With vinegar tinctures, it's pretty much just like any other tincture. The way that you'll put the plant in the jar, and then you'll cover it with vinegar. But I make sure that it's covered a little more, maybe leave at least 2 inches space. Check it later that day to make sure plants, you know, are sinking to the bottom. Once the plants, the vinegars enter the pores of the plant, it'll get heavier and, you know, more sink to the bottom. You're going to want to shake that every other day. I would keep it in a cool place. I'd maybe even consider a refrigerator, or don't keep it in a warm room. If you have a cool place, basement in your house, keep it there, because it can go bad with a fresh plant, especially if you do Milky Oat Seed. You're going to whir that vinegar and milky oat in a blender. You know, you've got a lot of fresh juice introduced into a vinegar. You can do it. You just have to keep an eye on it. And I'd say you can let it set in there for a week or 2 and then press it out. That's what I would do. Maybe don't even keep it any longer than that. But open it up, smell it, make sure that the plant isn't coming above. Now with Milky Oat Seed, it's kind of tricky because you can see in these jars here, it's always going to look like it's at the top. But we add a lot of ours. We've never had any trouble, but I know the people at Le Coudray that had some issues with it here, and actually we did too. So don't use as much milky oat for the vinegar. Make sure you can see more space at the top. If you want to email me, I'll try to send you some information on it, because I don't know if I'm quite covering what you're asking. So I want to talk about oats. Is really good for, it's a tropho-restorative, which means it physically can heal nerve endings. People who have long-term burnout, stress, shattered nerves, your nerve endings start to unravel physically. This over time helps to regrow those nerve endings. It's so nutritive. So I think if that's another must for your herb garden. Now, when we cut the stems of the oats, they're not going to grow back. So then we just have the red clover under there. And oats pull a lot of nitrogen out of the soil. Red clover helps fix it. So those two are great to grow together. And then you let those oats stay in there a second year, you're going to be able to harvest red clover from them. Okay, so ashwagandha, that I will have for sale. Here's a picture of it tomorrow on the farm. Don't worry, I teach another class on germination, but so you're just going to space these 12 to 18 inches apart. It can do dry conditions. Sometimes you want to sweeten it with a little limestone. I've had really good luck growing ashwagandha anywhere, but you don't want to make sure that you plant it where you don't want to till it up that were plants last year and you tilled it up, and you want to make sure that you let that row have a cover crop in it for a year when you plant ashwagandha in it again. Ashwagandha is, you dig them up in the fall. So we usually dig them up late October, early November when the plant has died back. The seed is a little lantern with little red seeds inside of it, and inside that red seed is yellow seeds. It's beautiful. Seed save that. That's wonderful. You want to hose the roots out well, get all the dirt out of them, take them in and chop them up. Be careful, they're kind of tougher. Sometimes we'll put them in a Vitamix to break them up, and then we'll put them in alcohol, pour alcohol over it. And here we have an ashwagandha extract from last fall. We still haven't pressed out. We probably did 4 gallons of this, and we're down to about this now. It's also falls in the category of an adaptogen. Ashwagandha is great. It's a slow, smooth, it sustains your energy so that you have a slow, smooth ride all day long. So you're just not frazzled and burnt out. It's calming, but also smoothly energetic, so much that you can take it for insomnia, but it's not going to make you fall asleep during the day. It's an immunomodulator, which means it's not an immune stimulant. If your body has an autoimmune disease and it's attacking itself, it's going to help modulate that. Of course, diet is a big part of that. So it can be very helpful with lupus, rheumatoid. Again, it's going to help protect your body from getting ill from stress. It can help re-regulate the thyroid. A lot of people with thyroid issues have taken this, and it's really helped balance that out. I can't say enough good things. It's also very helpful for depression for a lot of people. It's great for women as we age. It's also considered a sexual tonic, especially for men. But it's great with hot flashes. Great for hot flashes. So are other things. So Echinacea purpura, COVID, grow it. The root, third year root is what you harvest. You want to plant these 18 inches apart. You're going to get this PowerPoint, so don't worry if you're not. I'm going through pretty fast. Loves full sun, prefers moist soil, likes a fertile soil. You can see the companion plants: lavender, yarrow, oxeye daisy, butterfly weed. Butterfly weed and milkweed are great to have as pollinator plants. Hyssop. So we harvest the flowers every year too. We snip them off when they're at their most beautiful. We dry them, and we pull the petals off of some and just have a jar of tea for that. They don't hold as much medicinal power as the third year root, but they do hold some plant medicine. And let me go back here. See this picture down here? This is a Echinacea we cut in down the middle. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, talk about symmetry. Nature is chaotic, but seeds and plants have so much symmetry to them. And all of this is good medicine. You can take some of this, put it in your mouth, and if you feel that, you'll feel that buzz just like you do on a root. And now it's not going to transcend that sharply when you dry it for a tea or a tincture, but it's better than nothing. It's better than waiting while you're waiting for that third year root. You can harvest these. Some people are harvesting the leaves. I haven't done that yet. But as far as COVID, I think for protecting your immune system, again, you want, when you harvest that in the third year in the fall, or you can do it in the spring of the fourth year. We did dig some up last year. It was the fall of the second year. There's plant medicine in there, but it's much better this spring. It helps build white blood cells, so it's really a good immune stimulant. It's also lymphatic. It helps move your lymph. And alternatives mean it cleans your blood. What that really means is it helps clean your lymph. It's anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiseptic. Okay, so recipes for herbs. Lemon balm and chamomile are great. Tea, people who hold that nervous system in their gut. Children, they love lemon balm and chamomile. You can drink it before bed. It's very calming, very relaxing. If you mix it with Tulsi and St. John's wort, or just the two of them, it really is good for uplifting your mood and depression. I talked about Skullcap and Milky Oat Seed tincture. Now, if you don't have to worry about alcohol, this is a great extract to make. for anxiety, nervousness, just stress. Throw lemon balm and chamomile in there. You can mix it all up. Lemon balm pesto is great. Lemon balm fresh leaves in the bath is wonderful. Calendula oil is just fantastic. Now, we use the calendula flowers in a gut health tea also. Just wanted to mention that. I think I missed one. Anyway, okay, we're almost out of time. So dosing, it's right here. You can read that, but I'm more of a hard hitter, a lumberjack. Especially if it's acute, I hit it hard. I'll take 3 or 4 dropper pulls if I feel like I'm coming down with a flu or something, and I'll do that every couple of hours. If I get a sore throat, I'm going to put some Echinacea right there in the back of my throat every 15 minutes for an hour. That's my body. Something that's chronic. There's no need to hit over the head, because your body's had that for a while. You want to be more gentle. Some people are more sensitive. You don't want to use that dosing. But overall, I'd say for most people, it's like a 20 to 40 drops 3 or 4 times a day, depending on what you're dealing with. But that being said, always listen to your body. Better to start out low dose than high dose. Some people are Matthew Woods and Lise Wolf. They're big herbal teachers in the cities. They do more drop doses, although as the years go on, Lise is doing a little larger doses with some of her herbs.
Nancy?
And here it is for children. Yes,
I
the time.
just want to make sure, just a couple of people have had to drop off. So I just want to make sure that I have your address correct. 1237 35th Avenue in Amory.
Right.
And the plant sale is tomorrow from noon to 5.
Tomorrow from noon to 5, yes. We are practicing social distancing, so there'll just be 2 other people besides myself in the greenhouse. I ask that if you can tolerate a mask, that you wear one. And yeah, it's going to go on, rain or shine.
Great.
And
Thank
you
you.
see this last page of recommended readings. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, no,
Stay safe.
no
We're
hurry,
still
Nancy.
there?
No hurry. I just wanted to make sure that those were leaving could get your
Okay.
address.
All right, great. Yeah, so that's in Amory from noon to 5. You can just pull in the parking lot and just, try not to block any other cars. I have no idea what the turnout will be like. Some of the plants are too small, like Echinacea, Astragalus, Tulsi, and that's going to be like 3 weeks out yet. I do want to say there's Dragonfly Gardens in Amory, Wisconsin, which is doing a great job with some native plants too. And then I have some great books here. Medicinal Herbs by A Beginner's Guide by Rosemary Gladstar is a really sweet one to start with. My favorite was this. I couldn't put this down. That's listed there too. This is a great one by James Green. He's a very funny guy. He helped start the American Herbalist Guild. This is Herbal Medicine Maker's Handbook. And this is Tammy Hartung. She's fantastic. This has been like a Bible for me. There's one I don't have here. It's on my shelf. It's by Rico Czech, Riccochezhec. He also has a great one on medicinal herb growing. And he also has, his name of his business is Strictly Medicinals. Used to be called, well, I forget because he changed the name a couple years ago, but it's a great source of organic, hard to find medicinal seeds for medicine. So any other questions?
Yeah, one other one about, will you be selling tinctures?
Well, yeah, sure. What I'll do, I'll take a case out to the greenhouse and I'll have a selection of tinctures there and some salves. Teas were really low on, so I'll probably only have one kind of tea. We're waiting for this year's harvest to come in to start drying again. But yeah, I'll have some tinctures out. So if someone is interested in something particular, I mean, you can see what we have on the online store. I'll have most of those out there. Yeah, and the website is www.redcloverapothecary.com. And it'll talk about the plant sale on there too, give you information. And I can't see anybody now. I can't see you, Maureen. But love to everybody. And I thank you so much for listening in. And hi, Denise. I see you. Hi. Nice. And thank you for that.
And people are sending in lots of really complimentary notes, Nancy.
Hi, Kate. Oh, thank you. Great. Thank you so much.
They really loved it. So
thank you so much. Love to all of you. Stay safe and Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy. Love you. Thank
Love you, Maureen. Oh, miss you. Oh,
Thank you, everybody, so much for coming.
and thank you, Mike. Thank you so much to Mike. He helped. He makes this happen.
Thank
Bye,
you, Nancy.
everybody.
Thank you, Nancy. Bye-bye, everybody.